I am Joe Ikley, Extension Weed Specialist at North Dakota State University. Today is early August and I'm standing in a field in eastern North Dakota, and this is one of our Palmer Amaranth research sites that I'm standing in. So if you kind of see behind me and around me, we have several Palmer Amaranth plants at varying levels of maturity. So we have anywhere from plants 6, 7, 8 feet tall with a foot or longer seed head on it, to down by my ankles and feet, we actually have plants that are about 2, 4 to 6 inches tall. So the main reason I want to talk about some Palmer Amaranth issues today is to really give a state of the union or an update of what we know about Palmer Amaranth in North Dakota. So as of August 8th, when we were shooting, we know that we have Palmer Amaranth in 15 different counties in North Dakota. Going back to 2018, that's the first time that we identified Palmer Amaranth in North Dakota, and that was in 5 counties in that year. Every subsequent year, we have found additional infestations in some new counties across the state. The varying ways that Palmer Amaranth has found its way to North Dakota, we've had some contaminated equipment, such as used combines or other equipment purchased from the Midwest. We've had some custom combine operations, 1 or 2 cases of that infested with some Palmer Amaranth seed. Infested rail cars was at least one of our cases. 1 or 2, we haven't quite figured out where the Palmer Amaranth came from, but the majority that we've had so far that we know of have been related in some way, shape, or form to some animal feed. So we've had at least half a dozen different cases where we know we had infested sunflower screenings sold for cattle feed, and wherever those screenings went, we have found some Palmer Amaranth at these different locations. Whether that's in the feeding piles, just where the feed was stored prior to feeding. On this field, we had feed directly brought out to cattle in some overwintering field areas. And then also everywhere that manure has gone on these operations, we can find some Palmer Amaranth seed as well. So that's kind of one of our big messages this winter and into the future, is that we know these infested feed sources, particularly grain screenings, can be a source of Palmer Amaranth and other weed infestations as well. For the case study that I want to present here on this video and subsequent videos, the real reason we're really talking about these sunflower screenings is we are fairly confident that they originate from out of state, because we do a very thorough job surveying our North Dakota sunflower fields each fall for the sunflower survey, and have yet to find a field heavily infested with Palmer Amaranth. To date, we have found 1 field with 1 random plant as far as North Dakota fields in a sunflower survey. Otherwise, we do know that some of the other states that grow sunflowers, we can have some Palmer Amaranth escapes being the primary weed escape reported at the end of the year in these surveys. So what does this mean for our growers or our producers who may have fed contaminated sunflower screenings over the last several years? Well, this is probably a worst case scenario behind me. So we had several semi-loads delivered to this location. Palmer Amaranth went undetected or just misrepresented, misidentified for a couple years. Now we have a pretty healthy seed population. I am going to show in some subsequent videos in corn, soybean, and dry bean that we do have some research programs, herbicide programs that can control Palmer Amaranth quite well. But if we don't use some of those programs, we can have annual escapes. The other reason I want to talk about this population is kind of a worst case scenario, or definitely a case study for us, is the types of herbicide resistance imported on this population. So many of us are used to dealing with water hemp in our state, and we kind of always say assume glyphosate and ALS inhibiting or group 2 herbicide resistance. We have found the same thing in this Palmer Amaranth population here. However, in addition to those 2 herbicide sites of action, we have also found resistance to atrazine, our group 5 chemistry. We have found some resistance to our group 27 herbicides, our HPPD inhibitors, such as mesotrione and timbotrione. And we have some resistance to the growth regulating herbicide, group 4 products like 2,4-D and dicamba. So it's confirmed 5 different modes of action of resistance in this population. There are 2 more that we will be investigating this winter. So based on performance on field trials this year, we think we might have some tolerance or resistance to group 3 and group 15 herbicides. So when we talk about the number of sites of action of resistance 5 confirmed, up to potentially 7 we'll be investigating this winter. That pretty much exhausts us of most of our effective chemistry in a lot of the crops we can use. And so that's why we continue to hammer on and talk about Palmer Amaranth and doing whatever we can to keep it out of fields, because not only does it reproduce a lot of seed, very competitive, all the other things we've talked about for Palmer Amaranth since 2017, 2018, but the number of sites of action of resistance we're finding in some of these populations imported on cattle feed is going to make it very difficult to control if we don't clean up those escapes as we find them and let populations really take a foothold in our state. So that's kind of the backdrop video, the introduction, the State of the Union of Palmer Amaranth and how we've gotten infestations into our state in kind of a worst case scenario for sites of action of resistance. Subsequent videos, be on the lookout for control programs in dry bean, corn, soybean, and some other various comments in those videos as well.